Well, Ambassador, great to see you again. I think the last time, one of the times, was back in 2008 during Operation Cast Lead when you had a uniform on.
Yeah, I know this is a different uniform.
Yeah.
It's always good to be with you.
Exactly. You had an article recently about demilitarization of Gaza. Is that a rationale? What's the rationale behind that?
I think it's very important that Israel strive for it. Put it this way, it's not going to be easy to achieve, but that doesn't mean Israel can't establish it as not the principal goal, one of its principal goals in this operation. There are many precedents for it, and the most recent being the removal of chemical weapons from Syria's arsenal. In both cases, the Syrians used those chemical weapons against civilians. Hamas has used its rockets against civilians, so the precedent is for taking them out. Hamas does not have so much as a military tactic as it has a media strategy. And it works very well for Hamas in the past. How does it work? Hamas or another terrorist organization like Hezbollah will fire rockets at Israel. It gets Israel to strike back, to move its forces on the ground. The terrorists are dug in deep behind the civilian population. They're using the civilian population as human shields. And so Israel, no matter how cautious it is, invariably ends up causing civilian casualties. That creates very painful pictures on television screens that immediately incites the streets, particularly in Europe and South America. That immediately translates into diplomatic pressure in the Security Council and human rights groups. And Israel is threatened with sanctions. Israel is forced to accept a ceasefire. And then the terrorists use the ceasefire to bring in bigger rockets, more long-range rockets, and then they open up the next round. And Israel is increasingly delegitimized, denied the right to defend itself, and even denied the right to exist as a Jewish state.
It's almost as if we've seen this movie before, an Operation Cast Lead, Operation Pillar of Defense, and now Operation Protected
Unquestionably. It's the same strategy, and I've called in another op-ed that I wrote, I've called to basically give Israel a chance to break the cycle of violence. And that is an opportunity not only for Israel, but it's an opportunity for the United States. It's an opportunity for all freedom-loving people around the world, because if Israel defeats Hamas and really gives it a stinging defeat, then that is a message that will be internalized by other terrorist organizations. It'll be internalized by Tehran, by Iran and their nuclear program. And that is, we are not going to cooperate with this military tactics media strategy that denies Israel the right to enlist and empowers terrorism worldwide. If we don't defeat Hamas this time, then more civilians are going to die, because the next round's going to be bloodier, because Hamas will have more powerful weapons, they'll have more tunnels, more rockets.
So does Europe and the U.S., do they need to know that this is their fight as well?
They have to be reminded that Hamas, in terms of its ideology and its theology, is no different than Al-Qaeda, it's no different than ISIS or the Nusra Front. These are all radical Islamic groups that seek to create a unified caliphate to rid the Middle East of Christians and of Jews.
Is the international media complicit in Hamas's strategy?
Well, international media, there may be some journalists who have empathy for the Palestinians, maybe an antipathy for Israel, but the vast majority of journalists are just doing their job and they want to bring home headlines. And having lurid pictures, heart-rending pictures, makes good headlines, makes good news. You can ask the question, why is it that the deaths of a certain amount of Palestinians on any given day gets far greater news coverage than the deaths of far more Iraqis at the hands of Iraqis or Syrians at the hands of Syrians do? Again, it's the way it's the dynamics of the news media. So most of these journalists are doing their job. Hamas has no compunction about showing dead people, wounded people, and if they actually don't have bodies or wounded people, they will fabricate them. I've been dealing with issues in the last 2 weeks where Hamas has taken pictures of dead Syrians and posted them on their website and saying these are dead Palestinians, or dead Iraqis, and post them as dead Palestinians.
Is there another way that the message can be skewed? Because when journalists go into Gaza, they're not necessarily free to go wherever they want to go, and they're not necessarily free to report what they can report unless they're going to get threatened by Hamas.
I don't know that that's a fact, but one thing is for certain. We can say this is, we have hard evidence. You look through the hundreds of hours of news footage, and you have no problem seeing pictures of Israeli soldiers fighting. We broadcast them, but the Western press has not had access to the fighting arm of Hamas. So the impression creating is you have an Israeli army fighting, and you have Palestinians on the other side, and that's already playing into Hamas's media strategy. That's right there. You know, people have become benumbed in the world to the sight of Arabs killing Arabs. A bomb goes off in Baghdad, kills 60, 70 people, it makes the back page of the newspaper. It doesn't make the front page news. But if Israel were to kill 70 people, that would be the headline for 24 hours. Be very different. Now you can say that that's unfair to Israel. You can say it's racist against Arabs in a way. It's holding Arabs to a different standard, not just Israel to a different standard. But it's reality. And it's a reality with which Israel has to cope, has to grapple, and it's very much part of what goes on the battlefield. Because Israel has this wonderful army. I mean, we have a citizens' army. Where on earth do you have a democratic nation where right now 70,000 people, men and women, have left their jobs, left their homes, left their families to pick up arms to go out to fight for their country? And they're not going out there to kill Palestinians. They're going out there to try to avoid inflicting Palestinian casualties. They're going to do their utmost, even to the point of endangering themselves in order to minimize those Palestinian casualties.
And so how do you feel being here? You were Israeli ambassador to the U.S. for 5 years. Yeah. You're back here and in the midst of another war. Tell me your feelings right now.
This country always shocks me, and shocks me in a favorable way. I'm just all the time amazed and shocked just how incredibly strong this place is. Nothing stops it. We are just the strongest society, I think, on the planet. And they fire, what now, 2,600 rockets at us over the course of less than 3 weeks. And do you see life stopping here? Do you see the restaurants emptying out? Do you see people not persevering, going on with their days? We are on the front lines here, and they're just never going to beat us, ever.
Ambassador Oren, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure,
Appreciate it
Chris.
very much.
Always, always. Good to see you.